How are you doing, everyone? It's Lee here. I hope you're being good to your mothers, you rascals. As promised, I am going to do a, hopefully, weekly analysis of a Super League or NRL side. Melbourne won the vote to be the NRL side that we start with, at least anyway, and I'm hoping to get most of the Thursday games in for you. Just depends if I run out of time or if you don't like it or whatever. But we're going to start this week with St Helens, the current Super League champions, and we're going to take a couple of minutes to have a look at their game against the Catalan Dragons. I am firmly of the belief that regardless of the team, regardless of the personnel that you have, regardless of the game situation, then there's something you can do to turn every game of rugby league around in your favour. And they tend to revolve around these things that I'm going to show you now. This is called building pressure in a rugby league game, or as I've said here, turning the screw. First thing you've got to do is hold the ball. You've heard coaches talk about completion. There's been a couple of coaches over the last couple of years who say that completion isn't important. Trust me, if you've got hold of the ball, then the opposition can't score. So it's a really good place to start. So hold the ball. Get field position. Our game, people forget, is a territory game. And we've got to cover 100 metres to score a try. So it's essential that we get field position and that you win the field position battle. Kick chase. So you've heard the old saying, a kick is only as good as its chase. Well, this is essential because once you kick the ball, you chase it, that then decides how much time you give the offense before you meet them. And that's why it's so important. And because tackle 2 is statistically the most important, you've really got to make that kick chase good so that tackle 1 or 0 is really good. On that note, we then lead into collision. A lot of people think about wrestle all the time. They don't think about collision. Well, if you think about it, the better your collision, probably the better your ruck control or wrestle or whatever you want to call it. That will then in turn help you kill the ruck. That will then hopefully not lead to penalties. So if you think about building pressure, if you think about the ball going from that end of the field to that end of the field, if you're winning the field position battle and you end up completing a set, for example, kicking down, the opposition are running back at you, you're defending. If you give a penalty away there, it's a massive relieving penalty that sends them all the way back to your half. So hopefully no penalties and no piggybacks down the field. And then the last thing, all this together, so all the previous 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 points together, they contribute to you building pressure. And I'm going to show you now, based on that information, why I think St Helens have been the Super League champions for the last 3 years and why they're going to go really close to doing it again this year. What I've done with this video is put 2 defensive clips together and 2 offensive clips together from about the 16-minute mark onwards of a period of games. So two sets to the Catalans, 2 sets to the Saints, and within that there are lessons. I want you to note the field position where this game starts right now, and that is the Saints are in their own half. It's actually a second tackle. They're actually 6-0 down. Now, a lot of teams will panic at this stage when they are in a game. They'll feel that they need to get back on the scoreboard really quickly. St Helens will show an awful lot of composure during this little phase. Like I say, it's only a 4-minute phase, but it teaches you so much about why St Helens are so good. And one of the reasons I've frozen the screen. Can you see how the St Helens players have got their arms wrapped around the shoulders or under the armpit at times of the Catalan players, and they tend to twist them onto their back quite a lot. Take note of that as we are looking through this tape. They really do kill the ruck speed. We talked about collision. That's not bad collision from St Helens. It's aggressive line speed. And once again, either the attackers are spinning round or the defenders are helping them along. And look at the effort at killing the ruck from all players. Look how slowly they move the Catalan player down to the ground. Just so you know, I tend not to use too many names of players in these analyses, and that's because sometimes I get them wrong, to be quite frank with you. And I don't want to get bogged down in sort of individuals. We're here to analyse the rugby league and why teams are winning and why they might not be winning, etc., etc. Look at the line speed from St Helens. We've got the 2 in defender rushing up on this side. You'll see that's a pattern on both sides. 1 pass and already the St Helens defence is in the Catalans' face. You've got to think to yourself that in this position, the Catalans are in control. They're 6-0 up. They've got good field position. That on another day could have been given as a high tackle, obviously. But look at 3 men in the tackle. Did you notice the one at the back got off the ruck as quickly as he could? So there's a third man coming in who's always getting off quickly. If I'm going to be really picky here, we can look at the jagged line. We can look at maybe too many on the short side, maybe. Is this a sweeper? I'm not sure. You can also look at hips, etc., etc., if you're looking to violate some space in the St Helens defensive line. But ultimately, whatever the system, St Helens are defending with integrity. That line integrity, they're defending with purpose. They've got line speed. They're hitting hard. They're doing everything they can to control the ruck. 3 men in. Let's look for the man who detaches first. Look at the control around the ruck. The man on the legs, off he gets. That's a slow play the ball for Catalans. So St Helens, in that set there, just completely controlled the Catalans. The Catalans tried to attack a little bit. They didn't panic. Their defence didn't panic. Nobody shot out ridiculously. They killed the ruck. And as a result, they've thwarted the Catalan surge. Then, fair play to Catalans, they didn't throw the ball away either. And that's why they may have been in the grand final with St Helens last year, and that they've got some composure about their game too. But now what I want you to look at is where the game has ended up here. So I've put the 2 defensive clips together and the 2 offensive clips together. And as a result, you see in the end of the attacking set. Now, don't forget, Catalan started the last attacking set in the half of St Helens. Now they're starting it back on their own 40-metre line. Once again, you see the twist. It's not the greatest ruck control there from Saints. Can you see the 3 in defender rushing up now? Can you see the third tackler in there? Which one detaches? It's probably going to be the one that's nearest the legs. Yes, it was. So that seems like their modus operandi. Look at the line speed. Look at the control. Look at the effort to get them to the ground. The arms under the elbow. Line integrity, line speed, collision again. What St Helens are doing right now is attacking with their defence. Their collisions are good. They can sniff. They've got some good field position back. They are frustrating the Catalans out of this game very early. Again, look for the defensive patterns. The third man on the legs is off. It's not often Dylan Napper gets put on his back like that. Great defence from St Helens. Extremely slow play the ball. And look at the field position battle now. St Helens take it from their own 20-metre line. So now they've already won some field position with their defence. We're now going to look back at the 2 offensive clips. So remember, this next clip that you're seeing was the one in between the 2 defensive clips. Remember that St Helens are 6 points down on the scoreboard. It could be a situation where they might panic. Watch how they play out of their own half. Now, it's the first game of the season, remember. Look how simple they come out. And what I also want you to notice is how much better they are at finding the floor than their Catalan counterparts with their carries. They have a run-to-bust mentality. They are finding the floor a lot more. You can totally argue that St Helens are winning the ruck on both sides of the ball now, defence and offence. And remember, this is only 16, 20 minutes into their season. They've had a little bit of a look wider there, but ultimately, they've still gone down the simple route. Catalan are still making great effort to kill the ruck, but are clearly not as successful as St Helens were in the previous set. Saints are kicking out from their own 30-ish. What I want you to look at now is the kick chase, the quality of the kick chase. What I also want you to think about is how simple Saints were coming out there. They took no risks, and we'll go back to that checklist that we had at the start of this little video. So remember, this is the next set of attack in between another defensive set. St Helens really have been pinned back again there, but now I want you to look at the quality of their go forward and how Catalan seem to struggle to contain every single ruck. Look at that. Saints are starting to get their noses through a little bit now. When you look at the Catalans, they have a similar modus operandi, it seems, around the ruck control. But you will also notice with the Catalans that the defensive line probably at times lacks a little bit of integrity. I'm just going to roll you back a little bit here. That guy there, I think it's Dylan Napper. He should be the A defender here, but he's not. And that means Saints have basically Catalans have left an overlap. Once Saints start wanting to look up, look at this space that they can look at over here. Very tempting to do that. But Saints are obviously turning the screw. They're playing the field position game. They're playing the simple game. It's early in the season. Sometimes the more risk you take, the more you will end up on the back foot. Look at this for go forward. The Saints players are now starting to get some goal forward. The Catalans probably frustrated a little bit because they've not turned their pressure into points. And Saints are starting to turn the screw. I've paused it here because I want you to look at this offload. This wasn't a risky offload. They were in total control, and none of these passes are really risky either. And as a result, William Hopewati there gets a passive tackle, or as much of a passive tackle as he can, over on the right edge. And I want you to think about the whole picture now, where this game started on this video and where it's now going to end at the end of this little segment. The kick chase, excellent again. The ball becomes loose. The back three of the Catalans haven't dealt with it. Saints weren't perfect in their chase, but look at the field position. So now what I'm going to do, you rascals, is take you back through that checklist and let's judge how well Saints did on that during that little segment. So remember the checklist at the start of the game? Turning the screw, building pressure. Here we go. Holding the ball. Let's score St Helens out of that. 10 out of 10. No knock-ons, no big risks. Any risks were a bit calculated. Did they get field position? Well, they started without field position. They ended that 4-set period with better field position. They got 60 metres, 70 metres back off the Catalans. Kick chase, really good from St Helens. Yes, the line could be better at times. Some of the collisions could be better. Remember, it's early in the season, but their kick chase was certainly impressive. Collision was good. Killing the ruck, excellent. They totally outscored Catalans on both sides of the ball, offence and defence, in that segment. Their goal forward was better, and their ruck control in defence was better. They did not give away any penalties, and they certainly started to build some pressure. So the lesson there, you rascals, is whatever you do, if you just turn your attention to turning the screw and that checklist I showed you, then you can turn around any game. St Helens had 50% of the ball in that period, 50% without the ball, but you can't help but see that St Helens ended up in control at the end of that period. They had more control, they had more field position in that game, and they had better ruck control. So the battle within the battle. You'll see a lot more of this kind of thing. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're on YouTube, click subscribe so you don't miss anything. If you're on Instagram or Facebook, share it, tag other people in, whatever. Have a good week.